Hello everyone, and welcome to the final episode in my series, The Regressive Handbook, where I look at the statements made and concepts put forth by Fusion's series, The Democracy Handbook, to see if they hold water. Over the course of the last 9 episodes, I've walked alongside Bassem Youssef as he gave some commentary about issues like American infrastructure spending, questions about the absolute nature of the First Amendment right to freedom of speech, religion's influence, specifically Christianity's, on the United States' political proceedings, and the controversy surrounding the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, and I've quite enjoyed bringing you my views on each subject. With this, the 10th and final episode, we'll be looking at the concept of change, the part it plays in our day-to-day decision-making, the extent to which the average person can affect it, and commenting on how Bassem Youssef chooses to portray the concept of change as put forth by various political figures. And so, without any further ado, let's open up the Democracy Handbook one last time.
In the Middle East, there is no such thing as change. They used to have the Ayatollah Khomeini, and now they have the Ayatollah Khamenei. But in America, hope and change is the very foundation of your country.
The nation was based on a constitution and Bill of Rights that were, although allowed to change over time, designed to endure. So you could say that the nation is built upon a foundation of hope, but from the initial change to a constitutional republic from a monarchially ruled set of colonies, change has been something no more central to the US than any other Western nation, and it could even be argued that the system is designed to draw out and slow down the process of change. However, I understand that you're referring to today's concept of change in buzzword form, which gets thrown around by people from the left, right, and center. I'm just waxing pedantic for the sake of a cheap dig and a chuckle.
At this defining moment, change has come to America.
People are sick and tired, and they want real change.
Here's what I know about Hillary. She's the single best change maker I've ever met in my life.
I will be changing very rapidly. I'm very capable of changing to anything I want to change to.
Here in America, change is everywhere.
Now you're a sharp bunch, but just in case you missed it, I'd like you to look at how this video is being set up with that introductory sequence. You're being shown 4 politicians. Of them, 3 of them are Democrats, and only 1 is a Republican. Of the Democrats being shown, you have Barack Obama at his very best during his 2008 victory speech, Bernie Sanders speaking to what looks like a standing room only stadium, and then there's Hillary Clinton being touted and praised by her husband and alleged perpetrator of sexual assault, Bill Clinton. What? You thought I was going to go with the former president title? Well, if Fusion can run all of these clips prior to using a snippet from a Fox News interview clearly intended to show Donald Trump as unpredictable or untrustworthy, rather than as someone capable of adapting to new situations and challenges, then I can give an honest, though purposefully selected representation of Bill Clinton. What I'm saying here, folks, is that, as with all the Democracy Handbook videos thus far, we are yet again given glaring examples of, frankly, unnecessary slanted politicization of a video purported to be dealing with the larger concept of change.
Where I'm from, in order to make change, you must take to the streets. Often at the risk of your own life. Here, people taking to the streets is much safer.
Hi there.
Anyone can do it.
Yes, Bassem, they can. Anyone can write up a petition and head out in search of signatures for the support of whatever they're trying to accomplish. However, in a stunt that I find to be no better than Steven Crowder's common sense gun laws bit, you make a mockery of political activism, as you'll continue doing throughout most of this video. Now look, I'm totally with you on the Slacktivism issue you bring up later on, but trivializing the petition process, in which there are a great many people who create serious petitions with proper planning and research, well, frankly, that's unnecessary. I'm going to be double timing this next clip because there's not much to see or hear, but I wouldn't want to get accused of criticizing how he treats the petitioning process without including the material in question. So here's some super speed Bassam, and if you want to watch the segment as originally published, there's a link to the original video in my description. Alright folks, hang on tight and I'll see you at the next break.
Would you like to sign the change? Would you please sign the change? Change right. Doesn't matter. Take whatever you want. Just sign the change. It's change. It's there. We have a number. How things are going. Something. Would you like to sign now? You go, ladies. That's amazing. Thank you. Better America. We'll make it with your social security number, account, credit cards, and phone number. Would you please sign the change? It's for America.
After 12 hours, I only got 11 signatures. There's gotta be an easier way than actually talking to people in person. So I took to the internet and discovered my hunch was right. The web is full of all sorts of warriors fighting for change without ever having to leave their couch. I had to find one. Meet Stephen Michael.
Oh, really? Alright, let's meet this ridiculous caricature of an online activist. However, before we subject ourselves to this, dear God, it's just so horrible. Like some sort of horrendous car crash in facial hair form.
Dear God, it's beautiful.
Anyway, let's try to ignore the elephant in the room and get on with the rest of the video.
You think of yourself as someone who's making change?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much of your activism requires you actually leaving the house?
Okay, I get it. This type of, oh, I posted a cute little status, I'm such a great person, activism is a pain in the ass. And we all know at least one person from our online profiles who does this kind of vapid bullshit. But not all, hashtag not all, online activism is a load of do-nothing nonsense. Case in point, this guy. If you've followed my channel for any serious length of time, you'll know who this is. For the newer folks who may not have stumbled upon him already, this is Jeff Holiday. Jeff has, through his online activities, raised thousands of dollars for reputable charities and even worked with police departments to root out child abuse and see the perpetrators of that kind of heinous crime brought to justice. Jeff would be, by the definition of most reasonable people, because of where he conducts his activities, an online activist. I know that dead horses put up the weakest fights, and that low-hanging fruit is the easiest to pick. Case in point, why do you think I take apart your videos? But this is just so disingenuous, Bassam. This guy's not an activist, online or otherwise, and you know it. Hell, I get tarred with this brush while trying to advance my BSCM Ride for Change initiative, even though it's designed to parlay online activism into real-world actions and real-world results. And frankly, I'm sick of it. Either way, let's keep slogging through this garbage bog of an interview, shall we?
Yeah, I don't necessarily leave the house. I'm able to reach more people by doing it online. It allows me to attend 10 rallies in an hour rather than one rally, perhaps in one day.
So how do you know when you have made a difference?
Simple, Bassam. Speaking from experience, you know when you've made a difference because you can see, qualify, and quantify the impact you're having in another person's life. In my case, I've had people come to me since I began fundraising for my men's mental health charity benefit bike tour with questions about how they might be able to best help men in their lives who are suffering with mental illnesses and thoughts of suicide. And these people have relayed back to me the positive changes they've seen in the lives of those they've used my advice to help. When someone says, my friend decided to give counseling another shot, or they're finally sleeping better without needing to abuse medication, or we've set up a workout routine to get them active and they're noting a real improvement in their mood since we started. Well, that's when you know that you're making a difference. And you'd understand that if you had chosen anyone other than the human embodiment of Slacktivist nonsense for your interview. But what do I know? I'm just some online activist, right?
I mean, is it likes, shares the new smiley stuff that Facebook added?
You know, that's a great question, and that's actually something that's really fulfilling.
Nonsense. Not that it can't be fulfilling to you, but rather that Bassam's question was not a good question. It was a loaded question meant to elicit an answer that only wound up making you look even more ridiculous. Again, whatever, low-hanging fruit and all that. But for the love of all things good and right, someone get rid of this guy's goddamn mustache.
I'm able to see, based on the likes and these new reactions, these smiley faces, that, yes, I'm almost curating for this generation that won't be watching the news.
And do you know, Bassam, why this younger generation is less likely to be watching the news for their information? Right. It's because of hack job nonsense like what your organization puts out that only shows a narrow, polarized view of what's really going on in the world that's left them with this entirely accurate impression that most of what we see on television and online from major publications today is just partisan politics garbage. You, Bassam Youssef, are further contributing to that movement. You are further contributing to the distrust that people have for major media publications.
With what happened in France, I was able to just change my picture to support and show my support.
And who knows, maybe in the future, Facebook will just do the thinking for you.
Be careful what you wish for or joke about, Bassam, because you never know, you just might get it. I find this especially poignant since Facebook has come under fire for reports that its so-called news curators had been instructed to, quote, artificially inject selected stories into the trending news module, even if they weren't popular enough to warrant inclusion, or in some cases, weren't trending at all. Gizmodo. So, Facebook controlling what you see and potentially how you're allowed to respond to it? That's really not such a radical notion these days.
You do it automatically. Instead of having to take the time to select the flag or whatever, it could just do it automatically.
Seriously, there are people who think that this kind of automatic tone policing and narrative generation would be a good thing. Oh well. I guess there's always going to be a contingent of idiots in every society. Let's just hope we haven't already handed the reins over to them.
Are you familiar with the term slacktivist?
I think that's kind of a derogatory name.
Yes, Stephen, it is a derogatory name. It's derogatory because it points out the slacker nature in the kind of online activities you consider to be activism. Stephen, if you honestly think that what you're doing by sharing your 1 like equals 1 prayer statuses and flag filtering your profile picture is making a difference, well then, Stephen, I've got news for you, pal, and it's all bad.
Would you prefer web warrior or internet militant, Instagram insurgent, stay-at-home hero, digital radical?
Web warrior. I like that too.
Yeah.
I don't know about that guy. He never even leaves his house, but he thinks he's changing the world 1 like at a time. Is there any real change going on here?
If by here you mean through that web warrior's online activities, then no. No, there's not any real change going on. However, if you mean through activists and charitable efforts that use online activities to drive donations or publicize their initiatives, then yes, there's absolutely change taking place. Come on, Bassam. Don't you remember Jeff? Jeff Holiday? The guy with the crazy dreadlocks who's raised like thousands of dollars for charitable initiatives, and who, by some accounts, has done more to help Haitians in crisis than the whole Clinton Foundation? Okay. Low blow, I know. I know you're a Clinton fan, and it was an easy pot shot to take. Seriously though, online activism isn't solely the slacktivist time wasting that you seem to want to make it out to be.
I needed to talk to someone who has been on the inside and could tell me if change in America is real. That's when I came across this book called The Deep State, written by a 28-year veteran of Congress.
Alright, so we finally have an identifiable interviewee. Wonderful. Everyone meet Mike Lofgren, 28-year congressional staff member retired from the Republican Party in 2011 and whom since has made a living by writing, primarily critically, about the actions of his former party. Lofgren defined the deep state as a hybrid association of elements of government and parts of top-level finance and industry that is effectively able to govern the United States without reference to the consent of the governed as expressed through formal political process. And Bassam's going to draw some interesting conclusions about Lofgren's writing and interview statements. Let's watch.
Are you calling from an undisclosed location?
Yeah.
In an underground bunker, above ground bunker, any kind of bunker?
I think you could refer to it as a bunker, but it's very comfortably furnished.
So what is exactly the deep state?
The deep state is the people who run the government day in and day out, regardless of who gets elected. Let me give you an example. Barack Obama campaigned against the policies of George Bush, yet he ended up having as his Secretary of Defense Bob Gates, the man who under Bush conducted the surge in Iraq.
Yes, it's true that sometimes the incoming administration keeps certain members of the previous administration's bureaucracy as they go forward, and there's several very simple reasons for why they do this. The simplest explanation is that in some cases it makes the overall administrative transition easier when you have someone from the previous administration there to advise you. It doesn't all need to be some spooky cloak and dagger conspiracy. Now, normally I'm pushing back against poor representations of Republicans and other individuals who don't fit in with the progressive views of the far left here. But now I find myself defending more or less everyone against fear-mongering tactics with this deep state malarkey. Imagine for a moment that you are taking over for the retiring manager at a local retail store, with all the responsibilities that that position holds. Your success as a manager will be judged by the store's performance, and that means you'll need to know that you can count on your employees to get things done. Now, while it might be ideal for you to get rid of the store's previous workforce in favor of hiring a roster of employees that perfectly fits to your management style, you should accept that while you can replace a certain number of employees while ensuring that the store continues to run smoothly, conducting a ground-up restructuring of the workforce isn't the most efficient option. You may have an assistant manager who knows little details about how the store was being run that make important differences, or possibly a star sales associate capable of training new hires into developing positive habits. Either way, keeping someone from a previous administration is not inherently a bad thing or some sort of conspiracy.
Obama admitted in his book, when somebody runs for president, the national security state sits him down and scares the hell out of him.
Ask nearly any parent how they felt when their very first child was born and they got to hold them for the very first time. Ask them if they were ever hit by a sudden realization that they were now responsible for something so much more important and far-reaching than their own narrow existence, and then ask them if that realization scared them at all. And now ask yourself, if you were brought up to speed one day about all of the threats that a nation like the United States might face, and knew that the ultimate responsibility for the success or failure of your nation was now squarely in your hands. Do you not think that given the sheer magnitude of the responsibility of the office of the president, that you really can't understand until you're there, that sort of realization might scare the hell out of you? Of course it would. But nonetheless, we're going to sit here as you interpret one of Lofgren's statements to be some sort of shady conspiracy issue. Come on, Bassam, you're not selling it.
Wait, so there's people who stay in power and run the show behind the scenes? I thought your democracy was pure. But this sounds exactly like where I come from.
How has all this been able to stay secret all that time?
Well, it's not secret. It's hiding in plain sight.
Hiding might not be the best wording for what Lofgren calls the deep state. You see, there's a not insignificant leap being made here between the keeping on of some bureaucrats between administration changes and the sort of ultimate dictatorial control being wielded by the passing down of a nation's or national region's control by Middle Eastern autocrats, princes, so on and so forth. I understand that if the actual people occupying certain government positions aren't changed, that there won't be as much alteration to the opinions of the bureaucratic body. However, these bureaucrats are beholden to the government policies being brought in by each new administration, and thus are responsible for upholding the policies of each new administration. The way he talks about it, you'd think it was all being pulled from a Tom Clancy novel or something.
And the corporate media aren't very interested in knowing about it because it doesn't sell cornflakes.
Alright then, conspiracy theories like this just don't sell. Fine. Then explain how you managed to become a best-selling author by writing about them. Sure, it may not sell cornflakes, but it seems to sell people all on its own. Just like any other conspiracy theory, you're going to have people who just buy in and literally buy into it.
I love cornflakes.
Since the Middle East has been around for thousands of years, we can tell you from first-hand experience, change is not possible.
Maybe not in your region, no. However, in a democratic nation like the United States, change is perfectly possible, and it may help the system overall to have in office someone so different from the standard career politician as Donald Trump. I know it's been tossed around and it's a bit cliche at this point, but he may just be the shaking that the system needs. Let's just hope he doesn't shake it like a British nanny shakes a baby.
Here, you have free speech, elections, representative government. Is it possible these are just empty ideas so everyone can sleep better at night? It is all being controlled by the money and the military? I feel right at home.
So, another episode down, and what have we learned? Well, we now know that Slacktivists prefer to be called less accurate and more feel-good names like Web Warrior, but given their penchant for not really doing anything, we probably won't have to worry about their resentment of that term. We've learned that someone in the business of selling books is promoting a conspiracy about a shadowy behind-the-scenes control scheme being run by as of yet unidentified individuals in the US government, even though the evidence being used in this video to make said claim can very easily be dismissed as coincidental and explained with simple managerial tactics. And we've learned that Bassem Youssef lacks a grasp of the start strong, finish strong principle, as I must say that this episode of the Democracy Handbook lacked a certain closing punch that most TV or YouTube series would hopefully have. I'm actually kind of disappointed. On that note, I'd like to close out this series by sharing some of my feelings about all of this and giving you guys a preview of the future of my channel. Now, when I started this series, I was basically just looking for some low-hanging fruit that I could pick at my convenience. I was, and still am, very green at all of this, and trying to grow as a content creator. And the Democracy Handbook series gave me the opportunity to have a reliable body of work to criticize and comment on for dependable video production. Unfortunately, as it often does, real life began getting in the way of my YouTube life, and I wound up slacking off on my YouTube responsibilities. And for that, I'm truly sorry. I kept saying that each slump would be the last, and it just never ended. And that's on me. Despite all of that, I've had viewers and especially patrons who've stuck it out through all the lulls and slow periods, and I really, really appreciate your support. As my academic year is wrapping up right now, I'll soon have quite a significantly more open schedule, which means that I'll have a lot more time to script, record, and edit videos, which brings me to my main announcement for my channel. I've recently found myself absolutely captivated by Robert Greene's book, The 33 Strategies of War, and I've been planning a video series based on the 33 various strategies as they apply to the world of politics. I've been planning it for some time. In this series, I will be examining the 33 strategies of war and how Hillary Clinton either used or neglected each strategy, and the effects that these choices ultimately had on the 2016 election. This series will be publicly published on this channel and available to all my viewers. However, there will be some Patreon content involved. While the series will be available for everyone to watch, I will be working on a related bonus for my Patreon patrons. That might mean an early release date for patrons, or it might take the form of a Patreon exclusive counterpart series about how the Donald Trump campaign managed its success through various tactics listed in Greene's book. Regardless, more work will be done to provide my patrons with more content. Speaking of Patreon perks, I've started working on the next episode of Everyday Anti-Feminism with everybody's favorite Horcrux, Justin Dennis. My last video, dealing with Justin's Everyday Feminism series, tackled his issues with 10 myths we're told about rape survivors. And that just about knocked my brain far enough out of balance for me to run off of YouTube for good. Thankfully, I've spent some time training to be mentally strong enough to confront yet another Justin Dennis video, and I think I'm ready. The upcoming Everyday Anti-Feminism video will be released either Saturday the 25th of March, that's this coming Saturday, or sooner if my schedule allows for it. In it, I'll be looking at Justin's most recent video about Islam and the LGBT community with, "Why would a queer person support Muslims?" The answer to Justin's question, that there are all sorts of self-hating people in the world, is self-evident to some, yet there always seems to be a few stragglers that aren't quite keeping up. Either way, my patrons can rest assured that there's a whole bunch more cringeworthy content on its way. And finally, before I go, I would just like to thank my patrons, my subscribers, my followers, and my viewers for your time and support. And also, invite you to leave a comment down below if you have suggestions for anything you'd like to see from me in the future, or to provide some constructive criticism on what I can do as a content creator to make your time on my channel more enjoyable. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you in the comments.